In this video, I'm going to show you how quick and easy it is to get started creating a chatbot using Power Virtual Agents for Microsoft Teams. As the bot technology has been advancing over the past few years, it's becoming easier and easier for really anyone to create bots for their environments to help users, to interact with users, and to do some pretty cool functionality. And thanks to tools like Power Virtual Agents for Microsoft Teams, you can also create these bots for a low cost to your organizations as well. So for those who aren't aware, Power Virtual Agents are a premium add-on to the Power Platform where you can create these Power Virtual Agent chatbots. And but like I said, it's a premium add-on just to create those and to connect to those. However, there is another version of these Power Virtual Agents that come as part of what used to be called Project Oakdale and what is now called Dataverse. So you can create a Power Virtual Agent for almost nothing if you're licensed appropriately. As of now, unless you're government or education, you probably have the ability to create a Power Virtual Agent for Microsoft Teams today. So we're going to walk you through how to create one and how to get started with that. A couple of things to note about these Power Virtual Agents for Microsoft Teams. They do have less features than the premium features you get with a Power Virtual Agent subscription. A couple of those right off the bat. When you go to deploy your bot, if you have a Power Virtual Agent subscription, you can deploy that bot to a specific channel in a specific team. Whereas if you're using Power Virtual Agents for Teams, you can only deploy that bot to Teams itself in that left-hand rail. So you can't deploy it just for a specific group within a team in a channel that already exists. Although there is some security you can do to your bots if you care to do that. If you want to use a premium connector in Microsoft Power Automate, you can't use that with the free version either. So depending on what you want to do, you may have to upgrade to that Power Virtual Agent subscription. And that's, if you think about it, that's kind of how a lot of this goes. They give you a lot of cool functionality so you can get a taste for it, but then when you want to do something really cool, you have to start paying for it. However, I'm here to tell you is that there's so much you can do in these Power Virtual Agents for Microsoft Teams that if you get comfortable with it, you may never need to upgrade to the Power Virtual Agent subscription. So let's get started and let's build our first chatbot using Power Virtual Agents for Microsoft Teams. So here we are in Microsoft Teams, and you can create these Power Virtual Agents whether you're in the desktop client or in the web client. I'm actually using the web client here. And what you want to do is you want to come over to your left rail and you want to search for the app Power Virtual Agents. And you can see I have it here. And I'm going to be creating a new chatbot. First thing it's going to do is ask me where do I want to create that new chatbot, and I'm going to choose my team. So since this is part of Dataverse, whenever you specify a team that you want to create this Power Virtual Agent in, it will actually be creating an environment under the covers for the common data service that comes with it, as well as the other pieces and parts that go into making all the tools you need for Dataverse. So it's now going to go through and create that environment for us, and that's going to take just a few minutes. So we'll let that finish, and thanks to the magic of video editing, we'll go straight to the end. So the environment has been created, and it's asking us to give our bot a name. So let's go ahead and name our bot. We'll name it the first bot, because this is the first bot we're creating. So go ahead and create that. So now here's our canvas for our bot. It's been created. You can actually come over here and just start chatting with your bot to ask it questions over here in the bottom left-hand corner. It's going to automatically respond to a few things, so you can tell it hello, and it'll actually respond with a pre-baked answer for when someone says hello. So the key behind the Power Virtual Agents and how they're actually going to interact with the user is topics. And if you click on the little chat bubble here on the left hand side, you can actually see all the different topics that exist for a blank bot. And again, topic is like, it's a specific action that a bot is going to do. So you can see there is an action, or a topic called greeting. And if we look at greeting, we can actually click on it to open it up, and it will tell us what things people can say to trigger. What's a trigger phrase to trigger a greeting? So if someone says hello, hello agent, hello friend, hello, how are you? If a person types in any of these things, it is going to execute the logic for the greeting topic. And we can actually go onto the authoring canvas here, and it'll show us the actual flow for that topic. So if someone says a greeting trigger phrase, the bot's going to come back and say, I'm a virtual agent, how can I help you? If you'd like to speak to a human agent, let me know. So how can I help? What can I help you with today? So you can come in here and change this if you want. I can even say, hello, I'm your first bot, because that's what we named our bot. And let's go ahead and delete this action here. This is about the asking about an agent at any time, because I don't want to do that. And I can just save that. And then we can now, whenever I say hello, so I've clicked too quickly. So now when I say hello, it should say, hello, I'm your first bot. What can I help you with today? Okay, so it's basically what you do for these bots then is you determine what are your topics going to be that your bot needs to do. And like I said, there is already some pre-baked topics, so if you want to understand how to build more complex topics, you can look at these lessons that they have. One of the ones I like that's really complicated, but it's very cool, is the buy items one. So there's a topic here for purchasing an item. And if we look at the canvas for this, when someone wants to buy a topic, buy an item, it actually prompts them, like, where are you going to be shipping it to? And then it's saying, well, depending on what they say for the state they want to ship it to, there's conditions here for that. And then it can keep asking different questions and give them buttons to click on depending on what their answers are. So if I say, you know, I want to buy something, it's going to trigger this topic and say, well, which state will you be shipping to? So I can type in Arkansas. And as I type it, you can see it's actually showing me where in the flow that it's hitting, so I can see and help test this bot. And it's telling me that I'm going to have charges of $27.50, and then it's prompting me for a yes and no. Is this acceptable? And you can see by looking at the canvas here that I've asked a question, and I'm giving it a Boolean as a way of responding to that. So I'm going to say, yes, that's acceptable. And then it's going to ask me, well, what type of computer do I want? I can say a desktop computer. But you can see it's really easy to go through and ask somebody a question, give them prompts that they can choose from, and then take something with that data and do something with it. And all of this is kind of hard-coded stuff, so it's not actually ordering a product. But definitely look at these pre-baked topics to kind of understand how these flow. So let's go ahead and create a new topic so that we can start creating something on our own. So I'm going to go back to the topics here, and I am going to create a new topic. And basically we're going to do like when someone asks for a vacation, how do we want to respond to them? So let's call this topic vacation. And now it's asking for trigger phrases. It's basically saying, how might people ask for something that'll trigger this topic? So think of different ways people can ask it. And what this is doing is it's actually using cognitive services on the back end. So the more variations you can give to the way a person might ask a question, the better your chances are going to be that it's going to trigger it. So someone may say, you know, what is our vacation policy? And they may say, how do I ask for time off? I want to take a holiday. So just think of different ways that people can ask a question. Again, the more ways you can type it in, the better your chances are going to be. And people don't have to type these in exactly right. It's using, again, that cognitive services to try to determine what the person is asking. So once you have your trigger phrases in, you want to click on Go to Authoring Canvas, and that's where it's going to take us to how do we want to react to the user whenever they ask a question. So when someone does a trigger phrase, what do we want to say? Well, let's say that we want to send them to our SharePoint page that has our vacation policy. So here in SharePoint, I have a link to our vacation policy. So I'm just going to take the link to this. I'm going to go back to our virtual agent, and I'm going to say, please visit our intranet page about our vacation policy, and give them the link to the page. Then I can save that. So you can actually test this now and say, okay, hello. It's going to say, hey, I'm your first bot. And I say, what's up with our vacation policy? It's going to respond with, please visit our SharePoint, our internet page, and I can click on that link. And it's actually going to load up that vacation policy. Okay? So very easy to determine what a person is asking and then give them the information they're looking for. It's a very easy way to do like a question and answer bot. Well, let's now take this a step further, because maybe we don't want to respond with a link to the vacation policy. Maybe we want to actually give them the vacation policy. However, you probably don't want to hard code the vacation policy within your bot itself, because that means anytime anybody needs to update the vacation policy, they have to edit the bot, edit the content for the bot, and republish it, which is not a great experience for maintaining these things long term. So what we also have in our SharePoint site over here is we have a list, and this list contains policies for our organization. And one of those policies is our vacation policy. So if I select this vacation policy, you can see it's that information that was in that page. And now a person can come in here who has to maintain that information and just update this item in the SharePoint list. So how do we display this information to a user when they ask about the vacation policy? So we can come back to our Power Virtual Agent, and we can actually add other actions to our flow here. So if I can click on the plus sign here, one of those actions is going to be call an action. You can see I can do things like ask a question. I can say, well, you know, why do you want this? Or anyway, you can prompt a user for a question, get their feedback. But what I want to do is, I know they're asking about vacation, so I want to call an action. And what you're doing when you call an action is you're executing a Power Automate flow. So I want to create a new flow. And this is going to launch the Power Automate canvas for me within Teams, and I'm going to do a Power Virtual Agents flow template. And in this flow, let's go ahead and give it a name. We're going to call it Vacation Request. And I'm going to add an action to this flow, where I am going to get an item from that SharePoint list. It's going to connect me to my SharePoint environment, where I can choose that site, and that's my demo site. So I'm actually reaching into a site that is not connected to this team at all. So it's a completely different site collection. It is my policies list, and I want to filter it to where the title is equal to vacation. Because if we go back to our SharePoint site, you can see the title field has the word vacation in it. So I want to return the policy when the title is equal to vacation. So we're saying, give me that policy. And then I'm going to return to Power Virtual Agents text, and I'll call that response. And the actual value for the response is going to be the policy that is read from the SharePoint list. See, I'm getting this little error here, and you may have seen this before in Power Automate, where it's saying that the output needs to be looped over to accessed. And that is because, this is a little additional information, no extra charge, the get items returns more than one item. Even if it's just returning one, it's returning a structure that could contain more than one items. And so Power Automate saying, hold on a second, there could be multiple responses here. I don't know what to return. So when you see this in Power Automate, you need to use a variable. So what I need to do is I need to initialize a variable. and I will call this variable response. It's going to be a string variable. And now I'm going to add an action to actually set that variable. So I'll do set variable, and I'm going to set response to the policy. And when I do that, you can see it immediately puts it in apply to each loop, because again, there could be one or more responses to the get items call to the SharePoint list. So now I can return in the response the actual response variable, and I can save our flow. So now I'm going to close our flow. Takes us back over into our canvas. Now again, I'm going to insert, call an action, and I'm going to do the vacation request action. And you can see it's telling me that it comes back with a response variable. So I need to change my output here to the variable response. So whatever comes back from the Power Automate flow, return that as the response for the user for the message. And now I can save that. Okay, now the canvas is going to reset, and I can come over here and say hello. And I can say, sorry, you don't have access to talk to the bot. If you ever see that message, just click on the reset up here to reset the bot. That happens from time to time when you're in development of these bots. So I've reset the bot. Let's try it again. Hello. It says, hey, I'm your first bot. And I can say, what is our vacation policy? And see, I spelled vacation wrong. But because it's using cognitive services, it should still be able to determine what my intent was and return the correct response. I'll press send. And it's called SharePoint, and it's returned that vacation response. And you can see it's returned it encoded in HTML because that field in my SharePoint list is actually a rich text field that is formatted in HTML. And you may be thinking, well, great, that's not readable. Well, luckily, when you publish this bot, it will format that text correctly. So that brings us to the next portion, and let's go ahead and let's publish this bot. So it's been saved. We'll click on back here, and then we're going to click on publish here in the top right hand corner. Okay, so I'm going to publish the bot. And again, because I'm using Power Virtual Agents for Teams, my only option is to publish this to Teams itself. I cannot publish it to a specific channel. So the bot's been published. I can now open the bot and add the bot. Again, I can't add it to a channel. I can only add it to Teams. And here's my bot. And you can see that it is over here in my left rail. And I can access it by clicking on it. And I can say hello. And again, it's going to return, hey, how can I help you? And I can say, what is our vacation policy? And it says, hey, here's that text, the nice formatted text that's from the SharePoint list. And it looks nice and readable for readers to use. Okay? So that's how we can store that content somewhere else that we want to show in our responses. And maybe even turn this into a fully fledged, maybe a question and answer bot, so we no longer have to use Q&A Maker if we don't want to, and we can return formatted text to user as well. So let's show you guys, let's go a step further. You know, I could stop here, but why not take it a step further? So what I want to do is go back into our bot, and I'm going to show you how you can take advantage of other information that comes from the bot, and you can use Power Automate to get to. So back in Power Virtual Agents, we can click on Home here. It takes you to the Start Now button, or we can click on our chat bots in the tabs up here. It'll show us our existing chat bots. So I can go back into First Bot. And let's go into our topics, and let's just edit our vacation topic. Let's just keep editing this and adding functionality to it. So maybe after we give them the response, we want to ask them, hey, do you want to contact your manager? So let's say we show them the response, and now we want to ask them a question. And we'll say, do you want to contact your manager to ask for time off? And their options for the answer, we'll choose a Boolean. Here's all the different pre-baked in options you can see. You can ask about cities, colors, continents, and the Power Virtual Agent will know about these things. It'll know about cities and colors. It'll know about ages and expect numbers. So we're going to say we want Boolean because it's just yes or no. So do you want to contact your manager? They're going to respond, and then we want to do a condition based upon that. So if their condition is, and it's saying that's going to store it in a response called var, let's make that mean something more to us. So I'll say let's call that variable contact manager. And now, if contact manager is equal to true, they want to contact the manager. Otherwise, they're going to say they don't want to. So we'll just say, okay, thanks. Have a great day. Now, what happens if they want to contact a manager? Well, how do we know who their manager is? So what we can do here is we can create another action. So I'm going to call an action. I'm going to click on the button to create a new flow. After I save this, of course. So we're going to call an action, create a flow, and we're going to do a Power Virtual Agent template. And we're going to be receiving an input for this flow. It's like, how do we've got to get someone's manager, but we have to know who are we getting a manager for. And one of the things you can get from your Power Virtual Agent is the GUID for the current user. So we'll just type in, we'll create a variable that's called current user, and then we want to add an action to get that user's information, and for that we're going to use Azure AD. So let's use Azure AD to get a user. Let's go ahead and sign in to Azure AD. It's asking for the user ID. That's going to be coming from that current user variable, which is going to be populated from the Power Virtual Agent. And once we have that user, we can now, oops, I didn't mean to do that. We can now add an action to get the user's manager. And there is an action for Office 365 users called Get Manager. Where it's asking for the user principal name, and that's going to come from our Get User action, user principal name. And then we can take that information, and in our response, we can say, let's show the display name, colon, and the mail. So what all this flow does is it gets the information about the current user so that we can then use their user principal name to get their manager, and then returns to the user who their manager is and what their email address is. We could make this flow actually email the manager and say, hey, this user wants some vacation, or we could start another flow that goes through an approval process for vacation, or we could prompt the user and say, hey, how many hours do you want to ask off for? And I mean, this can get really complicated, but all we're doing for this example, just so you can see the pieces work together, is we're going to get the manager for the current user and display to the user their email address so that they can email them. So let's name our flow Get Manager. Save it. And now we'll close. And now, if they want to contact the manager, we are going to call an action that we just created called Get Manager. And then we want to show a message to the user. Let's say your manager and their contact info is, and that is going to be the response 1 that came from this flow. Now here in this action, it's asking for the current user, because remember within the flow we had that initialization variable of the current user. So we want to send to our flow the bot.user_ID. That is the Azure ID for the user that is using the bot now. So all that's done. We can save that. Let's go ahead and our bot is resetting. I'm going to hit the reset button again just because I'm going to be paranoid about it. And now I'm going to say hello. What is our vacation policy? It's going to return that encoded HTML that we really can't read, but we know it's there. And now it's saying, do you want to contact your manager to ask for time off? And I'm going to say no. And it's going to say, okay, thanks, have a great day. Let's do the positive path now. What is our vacation policy? It's now calling into SharePoint, getting the information, displaying it, saying, do you want to contact your manager? And I'll say, sure, why not? And now it's calling into Azure ID, and it's saying, hey, your manager is Stephanie Donahue, and here's her contact information. Okay, so you can see how we're reaching into different places to get different information to the user and display it to them. Let's go ahead and publish this so we can make sure that it still works in Teams. So we come back to the publish button, republish it. So on the bot publishing page, you'll also notice that it says, to get the latest content while chatting in Teams, tell your bot to start over. So let's go ahead and open our bot. Let's tell it to start over. Okay, I'll start over, and I can say howdy. And it didn't understand howdy. I'm so disappointed in you, bot. How could you not understand howdy? So I could add howdy if I wanted to as a trigger phrase, but let's go ahead and say hello. And let's say, hey, I want to take some time off. So it read the information from the SharePoint list. It's displaying the rich context. It's asking me, do I want to contact my manager? And I'm going to say yes. Now it is calling into Azure AD. It's getting my manager, and it's going to display my manager's contact information. Okay? So there you go. We've created a bot. The bot's doing multiple things with using Power Automate. It's doing some branching for the users. And we published it to Teams so our users can actually use it within Teams. It's very quick and easy to get started with Power Virtual Agents for Teams. Also, nothing we did here was a premium feature, so none of this cost extra. So go crazy, start creating some cool stuff, and keep an eye out for more posts as I show you guys how to add more and more functionality to these Power Virtual Agents in Microsoft Teams.